Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
On this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, we talk with the experts from Land O'Lakes Purina Feed to learn more about different programs available to ensure your cattle get off to a great start.
And now, a special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman with host Kevin Oxner.
Hello and welcome to this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Kevin Oxner. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're sitting down with the experts from Land O'Lakes Purina Feeds to learn more about ways to get your cattle off to a good start in life and increase your profit potential. And joining me in the studio today are Dr. Ron Scott, Director of Beef Cattle Research, Dr. Jeff Helt, Field Nutritional Consultant, and Ted Perry, the Technical Services Manager for Purina Mills. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Well, let's get right to it. You know, stress is a natural occurrence at various times in a calf's life, but particularly that weaning stage. And I guess, Ted, I'd start with you. What is driving and causing all that stress at that point in the calf's life?
Well, I like to look at it from a calf's point of view. Up until now, he's had a pretty good life. He's had all the milk he can drink from mom. He's eaten pasture, pretty much gone where he wants, when he wants, doing his own thing. Then when we wean him, we've completely turned his world upside down. Most important, mom's gone. He has a different feed source. He's got a bunch more calves closer. He can no longer go wherever he wants. All of that builds up and causes that little guy a lot of stress.
So, Dr. Scott, what is happening internally to that calf as he's feeling that stress?
Well, there's a couple things going on globally for that calf. First of all, when an animal's under stress, it's the same for us and same for cattle. For example, if you're driving a car and you get in an accident, you'll notice that you're shaking, your heartbeat's pumping fast, you're breathing hard, and that same thing is happening with that calf when they're weaned. And the reason why is because adrenaline is kicked in. But what happens is that all of your energy that you've got is used for a different purpose. So it's not going towards gain and helping your immune system. It's gone towards these other events caused by the stress. So in effect, stress reduces the ability of the calf to gain and compromises their immune system. But it's even worse inside the rumen, because in the rumen is where the microbes are, and the cattle eat feed, and then the microbes digest feed and feed the cattle. And when they don't get any food, well, their numbers decline dramatically. They get cut in half, and then after they get some feed, the problem is they don't fully digest it. So it takes days to overcome this challenge. So what we do from a research standpoint is our goal is to recharge the rumen. So there are specific ingredients and nutrients that we do research with to try to figure out what's the right blend to balance the diet and to get that calf going again. But it's all affected by whether or not they eat it. Because if they don't eat it, it's not going to do them any good. So we conduct research studies at the Longview Animal Nutrition Center, and what we're trying to do is look at palatability, intake, gain, treatments, and how the cattle do.
Well, I wanted to follow up on that. So tell us a little bit more about that research that you have done specifically to better understand and to build products that address some of those needs.
You bet. What we've got at our facility is a unique situation where we can bring cattle in and we separate them into different pens and give them different feeds. We also have a facility where we're able to look at what goes on inside the rumen, where those microbes are. And so we're able to look at things like ruminal ammonia and microbial protein production and things like that that are really the nuts and bolts of what's going on inside the rumen. Because again, we have to feed those microbes so they feed the cattle. But we take things from what's inside the cattle and then apply it to making a feed. And again, it's kind of this balance of what do we need to recharge the rumen, but also what kind of nutrients do the cattle need to get them going again, because they've been under stress, they're dehydrated, and all of those things play havoc on their system.
So research is important, and you have a wonderful facility there at Longview, but I guess, Dr. Held, I'd ask you, what about real-world conditions? Does this work in the real world?
You know, what we really want to say is the research that we do at Longview is extremely critical to the process in determining if it works in the real world or not. And at the end of the day, the people that buy feed from us want to know, do these products work or not? And we can demonstrate that they do work based off what we've done at the Longview facility.
You know, obviously different operations are different, and so as you work specifically with customers to put together customized packages, what types of factors are you considering in developing a nutritional package for them?
What we really try to do is get kind of a team approach. We've got a great co-op and dealer network out in the country that are extremely knowledgeable in production agriculture and the cattle industry. We've got our company field specialists, cattle specialists that are out there. And then we've got our consultants like myself out in the country, and we try to really put a team approach together as well as working with the local veterinarian for that rancher. And at the end of the day, we'll sit down and hopefully put together a program that looks at the genetic potential of the cattle, the forage resources or feed resources that are available to that ranch, the water that's available, how is that going to impact what our program's going to look like. And so we try to do a team approach, package that all together, and put a plan together for that rancher depending on his or her situation.
Ted, can you tell us some of the programs and solutions you all have to address some of these very specific needs?
What we try to do is work with the individual producer, look at his goals for his cattle, for what he wants to do to market them, for his marketing goals, and also his resources that he has available. Because we need to blend in, we use our supplements to fill in what his available resources don't cover. And it starts with the forage base, because we're talking with cattle. Depending on the quality of forage and what his goals are, the program can be as simple as our Avail-4 tub that we use to build up their immune system, or we've got all the way through if they're very limited on forage or in an early weaning situation where we're trying to conserve forage for the cows. We've got the AccuRation starter and the Precon products so it's a broad range. Whatever that producer needs, we can get them the cattle and the nutrients that they need to meet that producer's goals.
Dr. Scott, I want to turn back to you and tell me more about this product you have that's going to, I understand, replace your Impact Starter product.
You bet. It's called AccuRation Starter. We've had Impact Starter complete feed for a little over 10 years, I believe. And they've done a great job in the industry relative to those cattlemen who want to purchase a complete feed. They don't have the resources, or they simply just love the performance of it, because cattle eat it well and gain well and convert very well too. And when all that fits together, then we reduce the stress of weaning and help improve the health and well-being of the calf. What we've done with the AccuRation starters, we've looked at some different arrangements of our ratios of roughage and types of energy that's in the formula. So we've looked at how much starch is in it, digestible fiber ingredients, and changed those up a little bit, and have actually been able to get better feed conversion. In addition to that, we've added the Avail-4 product from Zenpro. We've used it very successfully with our Wind and Rain Avail-4 tubs that Ted's mentioned, and that really is a nice fit with the new launch of our AccuRation starter products.
You know, the real test of any program is results, and we'd like to hear now from a few cattlemen about their personal experiences with Impact Starter.
This spring, these bulls were weaned on a product called Impact Starter Complete, and they were weaned on that product in the self-feeder. From there, the bulls are transitioned to a development program called Impact Beef Grower. Those bulls are developed on that program through the summer, and the reason the Seidenstricker family and manager Ben Eggers have used this program is because from a starter standpoint, it gets those cattle started quickly. They're going to be sold this fall, so we've got to get those cattle off to a good start, and Impact Starter helps us do that. It also makes for a very smooth transition to the development program, also utilized in the self-feeder, and again, that's called Impact Beef Grower.
When we wean the falls, we put them on the Impact Starter, and after they get adjusted and they're going good on the Impact Starter, there's a transition that they go through that we put them on the Impact Grower, and it's kind of a three-step method with the feed to get them to get them all the way over to the impact grower to the finished product. It's been working really good for us. We like, I mean, as far as our fall bulls, we developed our fall bulls on that, getting ready for the sale. They seem that we don't have bloat issues. They seem to have really good gain, and we like it really well. It's working good for us.
We really like the way these bulls perform on the impact grower feed. You know, it's worked well for us for many years. We don't see any health problems. We don't see any structure problems with the bulls related to the feed. We've been very big believers in it ever since we started. It's just worked very well for us, and we like the performance on the bulls, because people still, you know, for all the talk about moderation and that kind of thing, they still like to see a bull that performs and gains well and has that big yearling weight. You know, they want a bull they can be proud of.
You know, I think the greatest challenge, you know, that we have when we wean calves is just getting them on feed. It's that transition from going from a cow into a feedlot or an off-the-calf situation. And so Impact Starter has really been a great way to get those calves, you know, on feed without very much stress at all. And so we saw these calves come off and transition onto Impact Starter tremendously, and without a bobble. And so we just felt that went very well. We see quite a difference in hair coat and in you know, just the overall look of the animal with the AccuRation. You know, the Purina representative and ourselves toured through the calves several days after we weaned them, and we realized that these cattle really do have they're maintaining their flesh. You can see the vigor in the calves, and also you can see it in their hair coat and just overall condition. Cattle really maintain that, and they don't seem to backslide at all during the weeding phase. We early weaned these heifers on Impact Starter, and it really, you know, I mean, that was a reason, because of the availability of resources. It was our best option, and the performance in the calves has been tremendous. We're getting ready to breed these heifers here in a couple months. They're cycling. They're hitting the weights we want them to. They're very uniform, and they've done everything, you know, that we want them to do. And, you know, a lot of that is because of the product and because of the support that Purina has given us.
We're also using the Wind and Rain tubs, you know, with the Avela 4, and I feel like that's also one of those things where it's there all the time. It's there to give them a chance to meet their needs at their pace. You know, calves, cows, so really like that. We also like to use the Purina products when we're weaning calves, and we have the Stress Care product and the Impact Grower. Boy, it just takes them right from the cow and the grass environment and on their own. And we, as far as weaning goes, we use the fence line weaning, and it's been a real good thing for us. We wean them, put the calves in one pen or paddock, and put the cows outside, and then just keep working the cows away from them.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We've got a great discussion going. Ahead, we'll talk with our Land O'Lakes Purina feed experts about how a starting program can increase your herd's profit opportunities. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Try it for 60 days, and let's see the difference it'll make in your animal.
You have an all-in-one feed, it makes all the difference in the world.
It's been a very good product for us.
But my chickens are really great layers, and I think that's because of how I feed them.
They look more complete, they fill out really well.
You get exceptional gain, you get exceptional growth.
It does make a difference that we can see, day in and day out.
Take the 60-day challenge and save up to $55 on Purina feed. Sign up at purinadifference.com.
When it's time to choose a tractor, look for quality that stands the test of time. Reliability that can carry you through the tough times. Resale value you can bank on down the road. From one brand that's been working the land for more than 170 years, all backed by the finest dealer network around. John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer.
NCBA members may qualify for special discounts of up to $400 on select John Deere hay equipment. See your John Deere dealer for details.
Join America's cattle industry for the 2011 Summer Conference in Orlando, Florida. It's a great opportunity to meet your fellow cattlemen and women, plus spend time planning for the future of your operation and our great industry. Bring the whole family and join us in Orlando, Florida for the 2011 Cattle Industry Summer Conference, August 1st through 4th. For details, call 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit us at beefusa.org. We'll see you there.
Like you, Behringer Ingelheim Vetmedica Incorporated knows the territory. With over 30 years' experience, you can rest assured that when you work with us, we work for you. We have an extensive line of vaccines and parasite control products for beef cattle and offer professional support in the field. We're continually bringing you innovative animal health solutions to help you build the most profitable beef operation possible. Behringer Ingelheim. When it comes to your herd, we've got your back.
Welcome back to this special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. This week, we're sitting down with the experts from Land O'Lakes Purina Feed, and we've got a great discussion going about the importance of a starting program. So let's talk a little bit about the specifics of a successful program. Ted, I want to start with you. What do you tell a producer who says, do I really need a starting program? Never used it before. Why would I need one now?
A good starting program gets those calves off to a good start. Is going to minimize any problems you're going to have with the calf. Not only increasing gain is one thing, but more importantly, it's going to increase their overall health, have less sickness, less treatments. Just the labor and treatment cost alone of treating that calf. Plus, when you go back to a lot of the original data that shows the value lost when that calf gets sick for everybody along through the chain, a good starting program was going to really minimize that all the way through the entire system.
Dr. Helt, with today's prices, will a preconditioning program really pencil out?
When we look at the economics right now, it sure appears that those programs can work, but we have to remember that a preconditioning program is just not the feed component. Preconditioning is the health component, the veterinary component. It sure looks like they can work, but what we'll do in most situations, we've got a colleague, Dr. Drew Shane, that keeps a database for us with a lot of our products and programs that we use. And so we'll go into that database and find a like set of cattle with the performance expectations that we're looking for and plug the current numbers in and try to make sure and fine-tune that program and prove that those preconditioning programs can work. And so the short answer is yes, but we've sure got numbers to back up what we're trying to do and go through that on an individual basis with those ranchers.
Dr. Scott, what about commodities? I mean, can we incorporate some commodities into this feeding program to kind of cheapen up our costs?
Well, we can. The thing we have to remember is that cattle are like people. You know, we need a balanced diet. We don't want our kids just to eat broccoli, and some of our kids won't even eat broccoli. But we have to look at that for cattle too, because if I have something like distiller's grains or soybean hulls, they are an ingredient, and what we do is we take ingredients and make a balanced feed out of that. And then when we give this to cattle, then it does more than what's intended. So for example, with Precon 5, what we're doing with it is offering it along with hay or pasture, and it greatly stimulates the intake and digestion of the hay. So cattle gain more weight and are better able to fight off any challenges they might have with sickness because they're actually gaining more weight. So we've been able to increase gain with that product, the same fed rate, 5 pounds versus 5 pounds. We've increased gain in our research by over a pound a day. And so some people look at cost as how much I pay for something, but we've got to look at cost of gain also. And if we double the average daily gain, you basically are cutting your cost of gain in half. So it's a big deal to have a balanced diet. And commodities are not balanced. I mean, they're lacking not only in the quantity of vitamins and minerals, but also the ratio. So they're not perfect. They can help you to cheapen things up, but you're going to sacrifice too on what you get out of them.
Well, Ted, I want to get your perspective on this cost issue. I mean, money's tight, resources are tight, a lot more operating capital to just manage any kind of beef cattle operation today. Can a person really afford to spend this extra money on a preconditioning program.
If you look at the cost of feed, all feeds, whether it's ingredients, whether it's just operating costs, and the value of the calves, I don't think you can afford not to have a good weaning and starting program, because you're just leaving too much on the table with lost dollars. A lot of it goes back to health. If we keep those calves healthy, they're going to be gaining. If we have to have a bunch of treatment costs, or if we lose a couple, that dead calf, his value goes way down. So if we're going to maximize value, we need to get those calves up and running and get them gaining and get them healthy, and then we can move on to our other programs. We've got a wide range of products available so that we can fit it specifically to that producer's needs. Everywhere from, if a producer has a lot of investment in facilities and they've got a weaning program that they have, every calf that's weaned needs to have that Avail-4 tub. From the standpoint of, we know that all calves don't go right to the bunk, but they will go and lick on that tub, get some sugars from the molasses to help the rumen bugs like Dr. Scott talked about, and then get the vitamins and minerals to help build that immune system. One of the best things for that calf to get him over his stresses that we talked about earlier is a full belly. And once he gets a full belly, he doesn't miss mama near as much, and he kind of gets the thought, maybe I can do this and I'll actually live. So that the Avail-4 tubs are a good place to start. And then we just build from there depending on the goals of the producer. We have the Pre-Con 5 program that we introduced last year, which is a 5-pound feeding product Dr. Scott talked about. It is the most palatable feed we have today. And that was one of the surprises, because Dr. Scott and company have done research for 30 years, and we compared that with Pre-Con receiving chow, which had been a standard for almost 40 years. The consumption was higher on, or they preferred it, the Pre-Con 5. So we've got a very palatable feed the calves can use, and then it balances the rumen so that the calves can use the forages and other resources available at the ranch.
9 out of 10 calves surveyed preferred that, right?
That's what we got, yeah.
Dr. Scott, I want to get back to you. What about size of operation? I know in some cases feeding programs, vaccination programs, et cetera, work better for larger or smaller operations. Is there some size considerations we should keep in mind as we determine whether or not this kind of program is right for us?
Yeah, well, I think the thing that we do a good job of at the local level, through the help of our consultants like Dr. Helt, is trying to figure out what does that cattleman need. Because everybody's different. You know, you got the very large ranches, 10,000 head, and when you've got people with 10 head, can they use the same product? In some cases you can, particularly if it's something that you're hand feeding like the Pre-Con 5 or our Wind and Rain Avail-4 tub, which fits all those scenarios. And we've got feed yards that are using the Avail-4 tub. Big ranches that use the Pre-Con 5, and then our smaller operations do it too. But the facilities that each location has is critical in trying to have the best fit for what kind of options we have.
Dr. Held, is there anything else beyond the starter feed that I should be considering to make sure that those calves get off to a good start?
The next thing we really need to look at, once we've kind of got the feed program in line, is the management component that goes along with our weaning programs. The people, who's devoted to do what. I think that needs to be outlined very clearly. The water, Ted talked about water before, that you know, that's one of the most often overlooked pieces, and so we need to consider water. We need to look at potentially what health problems we do have, and some of our feeds can come with medication options. AS700, for example, or Dequinate for coccidiosis. So do we have a respiratory problem? Do we have a coccidiosis problem? How am I going to fix that and put that into the feed program? So we kind of need to fine-tune those from a management standpoint, from a feed additive standpoint, to make those programs as good as they can be.
Ted, what kind of tips would you give our viewers for managing cattle on these kind of starting programs?
Well, I think we're all creatures of habit. One of the things we should do is every year look at our starting program. Is it going to fit for what we have available this year? If we have a lot of high quality forages and we want to use up those forages, then we would use the Avail-4 Pre-Con 5 type program. If you go the other extreme and we've had a dry summer and we need to conserve forages for the mama cows, then we would want to use the AccuRation starter program so that the calves still get as good a gain as we can get, and we're conserving forages for the cows. So I think, you know, my best weaning tip is let's look at what we have available and see what fits best for your operation for this year. And we tend to get locked into, we wean October 15th every year and we feed them pre-con for 10 days and go on to the grower's ration. I think we're missing the boat when we do that. We need to really look every year and see what is available and then use the program that fits best for this year.
Dr. Helt, you're with producers every day, and I'm sure you hear this objection, but the fundamental question again is its upfront cost. I mean, let's be honest, it costs some money to do this kind of preconditioning program that we're talking about. What kind of peace of mind can producers have that they will actually generate a positive return on investment, even though the upfront cost may be a little more than they're used to spending?
I think what we need to do is have that serious conversation with the ranch and figure out what the ranch budget is for these weaning programs. How much can they spend, and then determine what kind of return we need on that. I know cattle prices are high, feed prices are high, but we can still put money into these cattle and get a return on them. And as I said earlier, I think if we can delve into our database and pull out historical numbers and use the local ranch input cost and their ranch budget, I think we can come up with a pretty good peace of mind number to say there's a return on investment for doing this in these weaning programs, especially this year.
Very good. Well, stay with us. We'll return to our discussion with the experts from Land O'Lakes Purina Feeds when we come back.
Purina's wind and rain minerals are research tested and field proven to provide balanced mineral nutrition essential for cattle health, growth, and reproduction. They're highly palatable so cattle consume what they need when they need it. And wind and rain minerals special formulation resists the elements so they won't blow out of the feeder and maintain their palatability even if they've been wet. Wind and rain cattle minerals from Purina Mills, building better cattle.
Quality matters to me because I'm responsible for the care and preserving the health of cattle every day. Healthy cattle are the key to safe and wholesome beef. As a vet, I work hard to look out for the well-being of the cattle, no matter the time of day, no matter the weather. I'm here for the animals, and my work matters when it comes to the safety of the beef Americans eat. I'm proud of what we'll do here today.
You take pride in the beef you raise. Countless hours invested to assure a safe and wholesome calf crop. Why trust that calf crop to just anyone? Experience the new Dinklage difference with a long history and reputation for outstanding performance and cattle care. We use a combination of cutting-edge technologies and data-driven decision-making to establish our place as leaders in the cattle feeding industry. Allow Dinklage to be a part of your team in the quest to maximize your profits. With 5 locations to serve you in Wyoming, Nebraska, and Colorado. For more information on the new Dinklage difference, stop by one of our yards or visit us on the web at dinklagefeedyards.com.
Welcome back. Today we're talking with the experts from Land O'Lakes Purina Feed, and we had a great discussion going before the break, so let's get back to it. If we're feeding cattle in the weaning phase, our objective is to essentially precondition those calves for the next phase of their lives. That may be in a retained ownership program or as replacement heifers or simply to offer them for sale as feeder calves. Regardless, having a sound preventative health program is essential. We go now to Dr. John Mahoney, Director of Veterinary Services for Land O'Lakes Purina Feed at the Longview Animal Center, to speak more on this subject.
The key thing that we're trying to achieve, and this is something that everybody has to focus on, is that there's a big difference between giving shots and actually properly immunizing the animal. The ultimate goal is to have circulating antibody in these calves that will help protect them from developing clinical disease when they're exposed to disease pathogens through the marketing or finishing channels. Certainly one of the tools that we use to do that is using solid vaccination protocols. Generally, as we look at vaccination protocols, it's very important to consider trying to do it at the optimal time when those animals are not stressed, where their immune system may not be functioning appropriately. Fundamentally, it's the right thing to do. With the consumers' increased focus in on animal care issues, appropriate antibiotic use, it is important to really keep our vision and focus on food safety and animal care to make our system most efficient and effective.
Well, obviously health is very important, as we just heard from Dr. Mahoney. Dr. Scott, I want to go back to you and ask, what is the role of nutrition in making sure those calves get off to a healthy start?
Well, Kevin, nutrition and health are very, very interrelated, and it's kind of hard to separate them. For example, if cattle get sick, the veterinarian will blame the nutrition program, and the nutritionist will blame the vaccination program. And the reason why is it's so hard to separate them. But if everybody's healthy, then everybody takes credit for it, right? So the key thing that we know is this: when cattle are sick, they don't eat, or they don't eat as well. And as I mentioned earlier, when they don't have as much nutrition, then we've got trouble with those calves responding to the vaccination program. So we like to talk about more eating, less treating, because those cattle that are eating, they are the ones that have a less chance of becoming sick. So again, it's all about palatability and management too, because there's some management factors in there that sometimes are overlooked, that some people don't really recognize that this could be an issue.
Well, I want to follow up on that, and Dr. Helt, I'd turn to you. You know, I agree, if you have a right nutritional program, it's going to help from a health standpoint, but they got to eat it before they can benefit from the nutritional program. So how do you get these balling calves to eat and drink?
You know, what we really need to look at is first, water. I've talked about it before, but are we cleaning the water tanks? Is it a clean water tank? And we need to be diligent about that. The more cattle drink, the more they eat. So I think we need to look at that first. Another thing that we really need to consider is pen size or pasture size. If we're weaning into a dry lot, we really need to look at square foot per head, 150 square foot per head. We get less than that, you're going to have probably some mud issues, the urination and some of those things. It's going to smell like ammonia, and that's not good for the animal. So we need to watch that square foot. And if we get too big, the cattle won't come to the bunk or the feeder, whichever we're working with. And in a lot of cases, we really need to consider splitting those weaning pens in half with some panels for a short period of time to drive those cattle up to the feed source to make sure they start eating. If we're using our bulk feeders with one of our complete programs, a pretty common thing and a pretty easy thing to do is put those feeders perpendicular to the fence line, so when those calves do start to walk the fence, that they run into it and start to nibble on those cattle or on the feed that's in those feeders. If we're using a bunk line, we need to consider multiple day feedings, and a lot of people do that, but that's going to help us increase intake. And even a trick of you know, just running the feed truck or a pickup by the bunk is sure going to help draw some excitement. Maybe I'm going to get something to eat, and they'll come up and eat some more. So some of those little things we really need to think about and talk through to get those cattle up and eating.
Those are great tips. Ted, a lot of these preconditioning programs extend well past the weaning phase, right? And
Sure.
so tell us a little bit more about the next phase and how these programs fit in.
Well, once we get our calves started on feed, everybody's learned how to eat, they've adjusted to their environment, they know where they're at. Then we want to, and they're healthy, then we will move them on to a grower program to hold those cattle together, get some additional weight, and in a lot of ranches, it's to use up some additional resources because they have extra forage. That forage that's standing there, once the snow hits it, it's no good anymore, so we need to utilize that to get the maximum return we can on our ranch. That's where the growing programs are all about, and it's just like we talked about in the starting program. We need to find out what that rancher has available, and then we can fit the growing program to supplement what they have everywhere from real high quality grass to a drought situation, no forage. We've got complete growers also. The other thing to keep in mind is the same palatability tricks that we want to use with the starters that we keep the cattle up on feed. Then the growing program, we still want those growing diets to be very palatable because we're going to feed them in lower amounts, but we're also going to have silage or fresh grass, something else for those cattle to eat. We want to make sure they come up to that growing diet every day so that we don't lose our immune status and everything else that we gathered or got together in the weaning program. We want to keep it all together and keep those cattle right on growing because, like Dr. Scott said, cattle that eat don't get sick, and sick cattle won't eat. And we don't want to get them started good and then have them get sick after we're 2 days before the sale or something like that. So keep them going, keep them gaining, and you'll have a much more marketable calf when you're done with that.
Well, as we think beyond that cow-calf segment, I'd be interested to hear, Dr. Helt, what you're hearing from some of your stocker or feed yard customers about the value they place on these kinds of preconditioning programs.
That's kind of become the hot topic here as of late with the value of these animals, either going into a stocker operation or a feed yard operation. The level of money that we have to deal with now is really extreme. And so those folks are really saying that, a 45-day ranch wean preconditioned program that's got the shot component or the animal health component, the palatability, the eating component, fine-tune is going to be pretty critical down the road because the value of these animals is so big. We need to make sure they're off to a good start, as Ted said, for that next phase. And it sure appears that there's probably some discounts for those cattle that aren't set up right going into either a feed yard or a stocker operation.
Well, gentlemen, this is really good discussion. We have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll talk with our experts about some tips for a successful weaning program that we can implement this summer. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're not responsible for the weather, just the cattle. And Rangeland works as hard as you do to deliver performance, production, and profitability. Cattle need consistent nutrition. They'll get it year-round with Rangeland products from Land O'Lakes. Deliver what they need free choice in weather-resistant loose minerals and mineral and protein tubs. Get the most out of your forage. See your Land O'Lakes Co-op for products that will stand up to whatever Mother Nature throws at us. Weather's coming in. Rangeland. Consider it done.
Education, networking, opportunity, and fun. That's what you'll find at the 2012 Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Nashville, Tennessee. Get your ticket to ride with your fellow cattlemen and women in the country music capital of the world. You'll find cutting-edge education, top-of-the-line technology, and entertainment that can't be beat. Don't miss your ticket to ride to the Cattle Industry Annual Convention and Trade Show in Nashville, Tennessee, February 1st through the 4th, 2012. For more information, visit beefusa.org.
These days, more cattlemen choose Draxxin to fight BRD than any other brand. Here's why.
It works. We have fewer repulls, and the ones that we do repull respond, and we have fewer chronics in the end.
To retreat anything it's a lot more expensive than using Draxxin as the first time.
And the evidence backs up what most cattlemen already know. Draxxin cuts retreats by 50%. So talk to your veterinarian and check the online calculator at Draxxin.com. You'll see why Draxxin should be your first choice to fight BRD.
Basically what it's allowed us to do with our operation is run more cattle through in a given period of time. It's just really been a good product to use.
Do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older. Do not use in calves to be processed for veal. Draxxin has a pre-slaughter withdrawal time of 18 days. Please visit Draxxin.com or call 1-888-DRAXXIN for more information.
Welcome back. Starting your calves off right is extremely important, and today we're talking with the experts from Land O'Lakes Purina Feed about starting programs and increasing your herd's profitability. And you can start as early as this summer. Dr. Helt, I want to turn to you and ask the question, what can we be doing this summer to prepare for weaning for those ranch-raised calves?
You know, I think the first thing we need to consider right now is just a basic mineral program. We've talked about how important health is, and that's pretty critical in the whole success of this. And so I think we need to make sure the herd has a good, balanced mineral program. And then we need to do a little math and make sure they're eating the mineral and not just putting it out. So I think we need to consider that. The economics right now are pretty important from a pound standpoint. So I think another way we could add some revenue to the ranch is think about creep feeding. and the pounds we can put on there. And that also helps us with the transition and intake part of things, getting those cattle to eat. And one last thing I think we really need to consider, depending on where you're at, is the forage base. Ted's talked about that. Do we have enough forage? Are we going to have enough forage for a couple months from now? And really consider early weaning. If I'm really limited on that grass resource, we've been very successful in being able to do that with 350, 400-pound calves. And so consider that forage base, consider your moisture, and think about early weaning. That sure could be a viable option for a lot of people.
Ted, what would you add?
Well, I think when we, like Dr. Helt said, the mineral program, let's get down to basics. Let's get the cows what they need to make sure that they're in good shape. And then the creep feeding is really important, or just if you're not going to fully creep feed, just start later in the season to get those calves used to the feeder, because where they are now, they don't have feed or commercial feed. They're used to eating grass and off of mama. So if we can get stuff out there, just a really palatable creep feed, just a short term, get them used to going to a feeder, something mechanical, something that's different from mom, but also make sure that they're, and we watch the mineral intake, it's going to climb, like Dr. Helt said, you know, do some calculations. We want the cows to eat 4 ounces. It's really nice at that time when you see a lot of calves at that mineral feeder. If our mineral intake goes up 5 or 6 ounces, that's good, because everything that's good for mom in that minerals will help build the immune status of that calf. So when we go into our vaccination programs, if we're going to vaccinate before weaning, we've got a high immune status in that calf already, and all the material is there, and all the building blocks to build those titers are there when we give them to that calf. The other thing is we need to do everything as we prepare for weaning to try to reduce the amount of stress that those calves had, so that they go into that weaning phase as healthy as possible. And with the getting started on feed so that they know what commercial feed is, and a good vaccination program will help get them to that weaning phase as healthy as possible, so we can get them through and on feed as quickly as possible.
Dr. Scott, as we look to the future, what do you see coming down the pike in terms of additional products or programs for this critically important starting phase?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things that are kind of different on how we look at it, and I think the one that's the most overlooked is this. As cattlemen, we're always concerned with this calf when it hits the ground and we see it, but we have to remember the big words of fetal programming. And the information from the universities definitely indicates that if we provide proper nutrition to that developing fetus, it influences the health of that calf after they're born into the feed yard phase. So improper or proper nutrition, whatever that is, the industry's still trying to figure that out. It definitely shows that you can influence the health of that calf in the feed yard by what mama was fed. It's amazing. It's just amazing. Yeah.
I was going to say, I wish we had more time, because I'd love to go into more detail. Maybe that'll be the subject of one of our other programs. As you think about this critical phase, do we know everything that we need to know about weaning, or do you think that there's a need for continued research in this area?
Well, there's need for continued research, and the reason why is that the more that we learn, we realize that there's a lot that we still don't know, because it's just opened up a whole new world to us on what to look at. For example, we have a project along with our other species groups in our company looking at ways that we can help improve how cattle or pigs or whatever, how they respond to a vaccination program. And so we're actually screening different compounds to help in that phase. So that's a big deal for us, and exciting too. You know, I've learned a lot in that area. You know, we find out that the immune response is very similar across different species of animals. It's pretty fascinating. And then the other item is this: education. You know, we're up here talking to everybody. It's so important that we understand how to communicate and know how to respond to what people want, because there are different needs out there. We have customers who feed complete feed, and we have customers that feed 5 pounds, and we're trying to fit something for them that's something that they need, that's going to return a good profit for them.
That's outstanding. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. We'll return for some final thoughts from our panelists up next.
try it for 60 days and let's see the difference it'll make in your animal.
When you have an all-in-one feed, it makes all the difference in the world.
It's been a very good product for us.
My chickens are really great layers, and I think that's because of how I feed them.
They look more complete, they fill out really well.
You get exceptional gain, you get exceptional growth.
It does make a difference that we can see, day in and day out.
Take the 60-day challenge and save up to $55 on Purina feed. Sign up at purinadifference.com.
So what do you care if your cattle are source and age verified? Better yet, do you think the housewife cares? Well, 70% of consumers surveyed want to know where their food comes from. So where do you start? With this little green ear tag. IMI Global's the seal of approval that stands behind the beef you produced. IMI is engaged in source and age verification from the cowman to the kitchen table. So if you're ready to start, just ask us. IMIGlobal.com.
Let's face it, you don't think a lot about your trailer hitch. You use it and forget it. We understand. But at B&W, we think about it. Short nights, the long hauls, the never-ending chores, the unthinkable. We think about it all, so you don't have to. B&W. Trusted.
Farming is a partnership. Man and wife engaged in the centuries-old business of raising livestock and coaxing a crop from the ground. And yes, there really are moments that inspire the romantic images that poets and artists portray. The couple sitting on the porch swing, watching the sunset over a field of soybeans. Or mom in her apron, holding a steaming platter of biscuits as hubby and the haying crew look up from the breakfast table smiling. Or the wife chatting pleasantly as she explains to the implement dealer exactly what part her husband sent her to town for. Or the joy on her face as she stands ankle-deep in mud next to her stuck pickup, holding her dead cell phone, waiting for hubby to arrive. Yes, these are the ties that bind. Children, neighbors, and friends give their lives flavor and satisfaction, but the strength of the whole operation depends on the bond between the farmer and his wife. It is a mutual dependency that stems from knowing that each will do their part to make it work. This does not mean that there are not complications. There are times when each is forced to assist in tasks for which they are not well suited, and it is on these occasions when bedrock relationships are tested and lines drawn in the sand. George asked Polly to help him sort some big steers. "Well, where's Carlos?" she asked. "Nobody's here," George said, agitated, "and I gotta sort them this afternoon." Well, Polly was put on the sorting gate. The alley was slick, the clouds were low, the winds were blowing, and it was 42 degrees. "In and by!" came the shouts as George orchestrated the train wreck. Cattle got past, got cut the wrong way, the sorting gate got bent. George's instructions got louder and more pointed. Finally, he chased one clear to the end of the alley, cussing all the way. "Dadgummit, Polly! These cattle had to be worked today. I can't do it alone. Why are you always making such a muck of everything? Why can't you do anything right?"
So, does this mean I'm fired?
This is Baxter Black from Eltsair.
Thanks, Baxter. We're wrapping up this discussion on great starts for weaning and receiving cattle with our experts from Land O'Lakes Purina Feed. Let's get some final thoughts from our panelists. And Ted, I'd like to start with you.
Okay. Well, I guess my take-home message is we want to set these calves up for success. And we do that by starting now with a good program to the cattle. We get a good vaccination program with the calves, and we want a good, solid nutrition package going into those calves that will help them get them over the stresses through the weaning program and onto the growing phase as quickly and as easily as possible with minimum amount of problems.
Very good. Doctor, what would you say, Jeff?
Two things I'd like to say is one, we really like to look at this from a team approach. We've got a lot of good local expertise out there, and we really want to lean on them and use them combined with our consultant staff. And then the next thing is this really is an investment. The weaning program is an investment There's return available to the rancher if we can do these things right and get the cattle off to a good start.
Very good point. Dr. Scott?
Well, feed costs are always too high and cattle prices are always too low. But the one thing that we're in right now is a time where cattle prices are at unbelievably high levels. So it just makes sense to sell the most pounds that you possibly can. And finally, we'd like to thank everyone who's used our products in the past and encourage you to visit your dealer in the future.
Thanks, gentlemen, for what's proven to be a very informative discussion. I really appreciate it. And you can get more information on Land O'Lakes Purina Feed by visiting our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. And be sure to join us next week. We'll have experts from Pfizer Animal Health in the studio to discuss how DNA testing can play a vital role in increasing the profitability of your herd. Thanks for joining us for this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. We'll see you right back here next week on RFD TV.